When you listen to music, what attracts you to a song? The beat? The melody? The lyrics? Welcome to Auditio Divina, Sacred Listening with Heart, a podcast sponsored by Whatsoever You Do, Incorporated in Green Bay, Wisconsin. For centuries, Lectio Divina, or sacred reading, has served as a spiritual practice that has helped people to reflect upon the scriptures with a 4-step process. Katie and Tony, hosts of the popular podcast Revealed, sponsored by Resurrection Catholic Parish, bring this ancient practice to the world of music through listening, meditating, praying and contemplating, or sitting with a song. The words and music come alive to add spiritual depth to the experience of listening. Let's join our hosts, Katie and Tony, as they lead us through this spiritual practice, ever ancient and ever new. Welcome.
Welcome to Auditio Divina for Advent. I'm Katie.
And I'm Tony.
And we are going to be breaking open a song as it relates to the Sunday scriptures during this season of Advent. And we are so happy that you are joining us with this great process of prayer that hopefully this will help you experience Advent in a whole new way. So Tony, why don't you just kind of introduce briefly what Auditio Divina is for some of our new listeners who maybe this is their first time trying this for this Advent season?
Absolutely, Katie. So as our veteran listeners know, but our new listeners will get to know, Auditio Divina comes from Lectio Divina, which is an age-old prayer practice from the Benedictines, and it stands for sacred reading. So Auditio Divina stands for sacred listening. So we're going to listen with our ears to a song, and it's going to be a 4-part process. So we're going to first listen to a clip of a song, and we're going to do this first step called auditio, which is Latin for listening. And we're going to listen to a song and see what word or phrase from that song really chooses us, what sticks out, what grabs us. And we're going to listen to the song again, and we're going to do a second step called meditatio, which is Latin for meditation. And in that step, we are going to ask the question, why? Why is this word or phrase choosing us today? Why is it sticking out? A third time, we're going to play that song clip, and we're going to do the third step of oratio, which is Latin for prayer. And we are then going to lift up our word or phrase in prayer to the holy, to the spiritual, to our God. And then finally, we are going to do a fourth step called contemplatio, which is Latin for contemplation. And in that step, we are going to just let that word or phrase sink deep into us and just let it shape who we are going to be this coming day, week, or month.
And this Advent season as well.
And the Advent season, which is 4 weeks, 4 Sundays.
So, speaking of this Advent season, Sunday scripture, we kind of have a different view on the gospel reading that we're going to be breaking open. So, Tony, why don't you introduce the gospel for this weekend? And I'm going to throw in my little 2 cents as you explain it.
All right, so this week our gospel comes from the Gospel of Luke, and it's going to be from chapter 21, which is kind of deep into Luke's gospel. In this gospel, it comes from a body of literature that we call apocalyptic literature. It's kind of like end times literature. And so Luke is getting into what are the end times going to look like? And so he has Jesus saying that at the end of the age, at the end of the world, there's going to be kind of like doom and gloom that then leads to the coming of the Christ, the second coming of Christ. And so I look at that as, wow, this world's going to get really, really dark before it gets light. You might have a little different take on it.
When we were listening to the scripture before we started recording this podcast, you were all like doomsday and this is, and I'm like, no, it's hopeful that, you know what? Yeah, there might be some bad stuff and, whatever, but Christ is coming and that it's something to look forward to. So usually you don't look forward to the doomsday, but I look forward to what this gospel is saying.
One other thing that you pointed out, though, is it's a struggle to understand, Christ has already come, right? Jesus was born 2,000 years ago. The Christ has always been present since the beginning of time. before the beginning of time.
Right. And
really.
Advent's about preparing ourselves for that second
For the
coming.
second coming,
But
right. So that whole notion of, well, what's the second coming all about if Christ is already here, it already has come? So we look at the second coming of Christ as like the fullness of Christ. We know as we look around our world, Christ is not fully here. We got violence, we have wars, we have starvation and famine. We've got all kinds of stuff that's going on that tells us the kingdom is not fully here yet. So Advent calls us to that time of preparation for when the kingdom totally is here. And our role is to work towards that, to build towards that.
And about 20 years ago, I would say, wait, Advent's not about just getting ready for presents and Christmas trees? Of course not. We know now that Advent's about getting ready for that second coming, preparing ourselves to bring forth that kingdom of God more fully.
And enough of all of that, because now we got to get into a song. This
We
is
do.
Auditio Divina.
Yes, but this was good stuff.
Absolutely.
Now, the song I actually picked. I never get to pick the song, and we finally decided on a song that I brought to the table.
I think the producer got overruled here.
I think so. Whatever. But the song is called Keep Your Head Up by Andy Grammer.
So we are going to go into our first step of Auditio Divina called Auditio. We're going to listen to this clip by Andy Grammer and really decide or figure out what word or phrase is sticking out. What word or phrase is choosing us today? So let's listen for a first time to Andy Grammer, Keep Your Head Up.
I've been waiting on the sunset, bills on my mindset, I can't deny it, getting higher than my income's breadcrumbs, I've been trying to survive, the glow that the sun gets right around sunset, helps me realize that this is just a journey, drop your worries, you are gonna turn out fine, oh, you turn out fine, fine, oh, you turn out fine. But you gotta keep your head up, oh, and you can let your head down, hey. You gotta keep your head up, oh, and you can let your head down, hey. I know it's hard to remember sometimes, but you gotta keep your head up, oh, and you can let your head down, hey, 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 hey.
Well, welcome back to that first listen of Andy Grammer's Keep Your Head Up. We hope that you enjoyed it, and we hope that a word or a phrase stuck out to you. For me, the phrase that stuck out was, you got to keep your head up, and you can let your hair down.
And for me, the phrase that really stuck out or chose me today was the glow that the sun gets right around sunset. So let's go to the second step of Auditio Divina, that's meditatio. And again, that is asking the question, why? Why is this word or phrase choosing us today? So let's listen a second time to Andy Grammer and Keep Your Head Up.
I've been waiting on the sunset, bills on my mindset, I can't deny it, getting higher than my income's breadcrumbs, I've been trying to survive, the glow that the sun gets right around sunset, helps me realize that this is just a journey, drop your worries, you are gonna turn out fine, oh, you turn out fine, fine, oh, you turn out fine, but you gotta keep your head up, oh, and you can let your head down, hey, you gotta keep your head up, oh, and you can let your head down, hey, I know it's hard to remember sometimes, but you gotta keep your head up, oh, and you can let your head down, hey, 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 hey.
Now we're going to reflect upon why that word or phrase is kind of pulling at you. Why did that word or phrase choose you? And for me, it feels like kind of, cliche. The phrase I picked was the one that's repeated the most. So is that why it picked me? No, not at all. I feel like, especially in relation to the gospel, about keeping your head up, keeping eyes forward, about looking for the kingdom. And then when you do that, you can find true freedom and let your hair down, right? So I have this very horrible habit of when I walk, I usually look at the ground. And people think that, oh, she, self-confidence is low and, she doesn't, she can't keep her head up, right? Well, so I don't trip. It's so I have tripped enough in my life. I have stumbled over things. And so I keep my head down. But what is the freedom of following your path in a way that you keep your head up? I'm talking spiritually, not looking down and looking at my stumblings and not looking at where life gets me down, but keeping my head up and keeping my eyes forward, looking towards Christ, looking towards how I can help build this kingdom. And when we do that, when we keep focused on what Christ calls us to be and keep looking for where Christ is, even whether it is in our daily lives or that second coming, there is a freedom to that. And that's letting your hair down. There is a true freedom in being yourself and just being relaxed and knowing that you are doing the right thing and you are following Christ. And I feel like that's why that's really speaking to me. It's about reminding me to keep my eyes on the prize and to find true freedom.
For me, my phrase was the glow that the sun gets right around sunset. I remember as a kid that old saying, red sky at night, sailor's delight, red sky in the morning, sailor take warning. I really didn't quite ever get that. But I do know that there is that glow as the sun's going down on a beautiful night. And you might think to yourself, what does that mean for tomorrow? Like, what hope do I have for tomorrow? As that sun's going down and there's this glow, it gives us a sense of tomorrow's going to be a bright day. Tomorrow's going to be a really good day. So even though it's getting darker, the sun's going to come back up and there's going to be new life. And I really feel it ties into this reading for the Sunday in terms of there is some doom and gloom before the light comes. The darkness comes, but then the sun comes as well. And so I feel like the song really comes together for me around that phrase of the glow that the sun gets right around sunset is the glow that's going to happen even in the dark days, that there will be the sun, S-O-N, coming again to brighten up our world. So let's listen a third time to our song and bring our word or phrase to prayer. So let's listen a third time as we move into Oratio, the prayer step of Auditio Divina, as we listen to Andy Grammer, Keep Your Head Up.
I've been waiting on the sunset, bills on my mindset, I can't deny it, getting higher than my income's breadcrumbs, I've been trying to survive, the glow that the sun gets right around sunset, helps me realize that this is just a journey, drop your worries, you are gonna turn out fine, oh, you turn out fine, fine, oh, you turn out fine. But you gotta keep your head up, oh, and you can let your head down, hey. You gotta keep your head up, oh, and you can let your head down, hey. I know it's hard to remember sometimes, but you gotta keep your head up, oh, and you can let your head down, hey.
And now we invite you to just sit in silent prayer for a moment, lifting that word or phrase up in prayer. Well, welcome back from that moment of prayer. We're going to invite you now to listen to this song for a fourth time, and we will then rest in the presence of the sacred and really let that word or phrase sink deeper and deeper. So let's listen to Andy Grammer. Let's listen to Andy Grammer one final time with Keep Your Head Up.
I've been waiting on the sunset, bills on my mindset, I can't deny it, getting higher than my income's breadcrumbs, I've been trying to survive, the glow that the sun gets right around sunset, helps me realize that this is just a journey, drop your worries, you are gonna turn out fine, oh, you turn out fine, fine, oh, you turn out fine. But you gotta keep your head up, oh, and you can let your head down, hey. You gotta keep your head up, oh, and you can let your head down, hey. I know it's hard to remember sometimes, but you gotta keep your head up, oh, and you can let your head down, hey, 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 hey.
Welcome back from that final listening to Andy Grammer and Keep Your Head Up. Now, we now invite you to just sit in quiet in some silent contemplation with your word or phrase, letting it sink deeply into you, letting it affect you and your life.
And as we come back from that reflection time, let's take a look at how we're going to let this word or phrase permeate into our lives. Again, my phrase was, gotta keep your head up and you can let your hair down. And for me, it is a reminder to keep my head up, right? How obvious is that? But more importantly, to keep my eyes focused on the kingdom, to think about how I keep my head up, I don't look down, to keep reminding myself to keep my eyes up so that I'm not focused on the stumbling blocks, that I don't trip over the daily grind of life that kind of separates me from being who I am, that I don't allow the anxieties of daily life to trip me up, that I keep my eyes open, that I keep my eyes up, that I continue looking for Christ, and that when the second coming does come, my eyes are focused upward at that second coming, and that I am free to be who I am, that Christ meets me truly who I am and finds a truly free person.
Again, my phrase was the glow that the sun gets right around sunset. I can tend to be, like I think many people in our world can, be people of doom and gloom. And we look at, oh my gosh, this is happening in our world politically. This is happening economically. This is happening in terms of relationships from one country to another. And everything seems so doom and gloom and dark. If we can sit in that and we can let that affect our lives, or we can look to the beautiful light that is present around us, if we just look for it. The sunset, I think, gives us the key. Like, even though the sun is going down, even though it's getting darker, there's always that hope and promise for new life and light. I think I need to this day and season of Advent, look at what are the moments of light in my life. It's a darker season. That's why we have Advent during this time, as our days get shorter and shorter and shorter as we move towards the winter solstice. But we also know that there's going to be a promise of more light come December 21st. So I think I got to keep my eye on the prize, that we're not people of darkness. We never say we're people of darkness. We're people of light. So I need to live in the light a little bit more.
Tony, you are just, I look at you and you bring such great wisdom. So thank you for sharing your thoughts. I mean, I feel like sometimes I just stumble and bumble up and maybe some of you feel like that, but it's great that we have this time to share. And I learned a lot from you and just how to look at the world. So I appreciate going into Advent season, listening to what your thoughts are. So I appreciate it.
And vice versa.
So, and we thank you for listening to this Auditio Divina for the first Sunday of Advent. And we hope that you join us throughout the rest of Advent, and as we explore more songs that relate to the Gospels of the weekend.
Hopefully next week we can get back into my genre of music.
We'll see.
So until next time.
Catch you on the flip side.